What a brilliant ember you have there. I've only heard legends of such specimens. The embers used for the secret rites of divine blacksmiths. Perhaps you could lend it to me. I've long dreamed of forging divine weapons. Splendid. Splendid. Thank you. Andre of Astora never disappoints. I assure you. How about leaving that ember with me? I find it strangely fascinating. Yes. Well, thank you. This ember really is something special. I'm already under its spell. I sense great potential indeed.
Hello everybody, my name is Michael, and this is Dark Souls 1. We have just come here to Andre and given him the Dark Ember and the large Divine Ember. With that large Divine Ember, we can do something very important here. Remember way back in Anor Londo when we picked up something called an occult club in a chest with a mimic deep inside the secret room in Anor Londo? The person in there, presumably Havel, went to a serious level of secrecy to prevent people from ever finding that occult club, because maybe he was going to use it in a plot against the deities. Well, the point of that occult club and use of the game is that you can take it to Andre of Astora, or I think most of the other, maybe some of the other blacksmiths, and go to this strange option all the way at the end with an arrow and a circle there. And if you take that, you can downgrade weapons. So you can see plus 10 to plus 5, plus 6 to plus 5. And why you would ever want to downgrade a weapon? Why would you want to do that? Well, if you want to upgrade something, say you have a plus 7 weapon, but you really want to make it a plus 5 and then make it a fire weapon, you would go to Andre of Astora, and he would downgrade it to plus 5 so you can take it to Vamos to bring it up into the fire category. It all gets a little bit confusing, I know. And what you can do with the occult club is you can bring an occult weapon back here and downgrade it to divine plus 5, because that's how you make occult weapons. You use the dark ember that we found in the painted world of Ariamis in order to ascend a plus 5 divine weapon up into occult. Now, I may have mentioned in another section of the game that divine weapons are really more or less useless, and I still stick by that, because there's really not much use to having a divine weapon if you could just have a fire or a lightning weapon. Even faith characters are not well served by a lot of divine weapons, to be honest. They're not better served than they are with the other things, with the lightning or the fire. However, there is one chance to really use a divine weapon right. And if you get that divine weaponry, usually what I would do is go to Anor Londo, get the occult club, come back here, have it downgraded by Andre, and then go into the catacombs. Because once you are in the catacombs, if you have a divine weapon, you can kill the skeletons right away and have them not resurrect, even without killing the necromancers. So a divine weapon makes the catacombs considerably easier than they otherwise would be. And also, if you are a divine character, a faith character, you can get Astora's Straight Sword, which is a divine weapon you can get right at the bottom of Firelink Shrine in the Valley of Drakes at the start of the game. So it would make it much easier and much more viable for the catacombs to be a starting area for you. However, Astora's Straight Sword is not terribly good in general as a weapon. I'm not saying you can use it more or less after that first part of the game, so it's not a great starting weapon, but you can use it. But usually I would take that occult ember, downgrade it to divine plus 5, and that's really the point of it being there, so you can make the catacombs. You can get a divine ember or a divine weapon easily to go through the catacombs. A club that anybody can use. I think that's basically why, because I think virtually all classes start with the ability to use the basic club, at least two-handed. So I'm going to take the large divine ember and upgrade this divine club up to plus 8 here. I'd like to bring it up to plus 10 if I could, but I don't have the material. Now, you may be asking, well, why are you doing this? You already beat the catacombs, didn't you? You know, I mean, what's the point of all this? Well, the point of this is that I am going to be fighting in this episode Gravelord Nito, the boss of the undead area, because we're more or less wrapping that area up at this point. And when you go into Gravelord Nito's boss room, you are going to encounter skeletons, and they raise right back up, resurrect, just like the necromancers would do back in the catacombs, except these permanently raise back up until you kill Nito. They are constantly going to be going up and down as you attack them. So you have to kill them with divine weapons. Otherwise, you're going to be dealing with 3 pissed-off, falchion-wielding, scimitar-wielding skeletons throughout the entire fight, making it far more tricky and far more irritating than it otherwise would be. So that's why I'm going to be bringing that along with me. I also want to point out that Gravelord Nito is actually quite affected by fire. Pyromancy does a considerable amount of damage to him. And let's take a look. I wanted to show everybody this. This son of a bitch is now sleeping. Look at his eyes. They look sort of like half open, like he's just dozing. I love that. And his mouth is open, and he's snoring. I'm reminded, when I first came here and saw this, of a book I read called Homicide, Life on the Killing Streets, by David Simon. David Simon is the guy who made the HBO series The Wire. But about 10 years before that, he made a great book about the police department in Baltimore called Homicide, Life on the Killing Street. And I remember an anecdote from the story about the police officers going into the interrogation room, the homicide detectives, and they said that in almost every case they could tell if someone was guilty or innocent because the innocent people were nervous, they were shaking, they were scared, they were attacked by anxiety, they were worried about what was going to happen to them. Those guys were innocent. And the guilty ones would go right into the interrogation cell and fall asleep. And I don't know why they did that. They didn't explain why the heck they fell asleep. They just felt maybe, that they had no guilt whatsoever and they just didn't care at all and they would go in there and fall asleep. And this is perfect for Frampt, who is now, he's obviously up to something. He reminds me of that person in an interrogation cell who's doing something awful and he just falls asleep. And if you want to talk to him at this point in the game, you have to attack him. Shut up, Frampt. Oh, look at him yawning. He's got to quickly see if he has anything new to say. Probably not, though. Nope. Okay, so it's time to go down to the Tomb of the Giants. This guy is probably... he's the easiest of the 4 lords that you have to kill. He's pretty simplistic with his this dude because he's fairly easy to get. It's not super easy, remember, but it's mainly difficult your first time through. It's not so difficult after you've already figured it out and know which way to go, exactly where to roll, which way to move. The other ones are tricky and difficult even after you've figured out where to go. They're still kind of complicated, the other 3 lords, so I'm going to save those for another day and just go after Nito here. There is another bonfire that we're heading to, the second bonfire of this area. If we live, I hate those damn dogs. You see, the sunlight maggot makes this area child's play. It just makes it so easy. Now, I can't always get to this area without being attacked by the dogs. So we might not be able to light the bonfire if we're slow. Oh no, we made it. Good. Yeah, you see, we were kicked out of the bonfire really fast because of because that dog was getting very, very close, but it wasn't close enough to prevent the bonfire from being used. That's kind of interesting. We don't actually need this for the boss room itself. The next area is mercifully well lit, and I want to just point out this area, which I did not talk about when I was here last time, and I don't know if I should talk about it now, but that area right there, that is actually Ash Lake. You think of the god of the god of the dead as being in the lowest pit of everything, the dark area of the world. But in reality, I don't think it is at the lowest part of everything. The lowest part is way down there in Ash Lake. And that is where we're going to learn that this world that we're on is not a planet in the modern sense. It's really more of a gigantic... it's sort of like a Norse world on top of trees, almost like we're in the middle of Yggdrasil. And those trees down there are actually the trees that were the homes of the dragons in the starting age of humanity, before the age of fire, before the age of the gods. And we're actually going to get to go down to that area known as the Great Hollow eventually, but not in this episode, a couple episodes ahead. No, no, curse you! Alright. I hate those guys. You can quit and reload the game and have them respawn, but I'm not going to bother with that. This next area, we really don't need to fight very many people. We're just going to walk through here. Don't be scared when this happens. Just move slightly to the left and keep going. And there's another guy here in just a second who is here. And we can just walk past. And this guy mysteriously goes away and lets us pass. And these two skeletons, as long as you book it, you don't have to worry about them at all. You just run right by. Look at this. Look at the skeletons praying beneath here. That's amazing. I kind of want to look at this and show you guys things, but I'm also I also don't want to die, so I'd have to go a little fast. But they're clearly in some sort of act of prostration. The undead are bowing to the people here. Oh, come on, don't jump down there. And now we see something that really confused me when I came here. That's Pinhead. Pinhead, oh my god. I'm watching the Hellraiser movies too much. That's Pinwheel. The guy that we fought that was the previous boss of the area. He is, like the Capper Demon and the Taurus Demon, now a basic enemy. So what happened to him? I thought there was just a Pinwheel and that was part of the lore. But there are multiple Pinwheels? It seems that Pinwheel was some sort of bizarre experiment that was discarded by Nito at some point. But in another section we learn that Pinwheel stole the right of kindling from Nito. So was there one Pinwheel or were there multiple Pinwheels that came around here? I'm shocked that we haven't been attacked by the baby skeletons yet. I don't know where the heck they are. They're dawdling. Those Pinwheels can also drop the masks. I love these skeletons here. They can drop this is the Mask of the Father. You can get all three of the masks, I think, from them dropping them here. And you can get 2 Souls of a Hero here. That's pretty darn good. We haven't run into any of the baby skeletons, which is weird. I don't know where they are. They must be down here. Right? There they are. They're the baby skeletons. Don't die. Please don't die. I'm dead. Fuck. I'll cut back here. I got caught off guard because I thought those guys were going to attack much earlier. I didn't know they were kind of clustering around there. Those enemies are the baby skeletons, and it's really horrifying that there are these, child's sized skeletons running around here. I'm reminded of something in Dungeons and Dragons, I think called the Doll Golem, and it's a golem that it's sort of like the Puppet Master golems that's really small. And I think there's like a bone golem also, so it's sort of like a mixture of those two. And those guys, as obviously happened because I died, are very dangerous. They can kill you very quickly because I thought they could do bleed damage, but it seems they also inflict the toxic status. So, also I should mention that Gravelord Nito, the boss we're about to face, also can do that. I also wanted to talk about the fact that this area and this concept of undeath is really fascinating to me. Because in Dungeons and Dragons, there is nothing less holy than the undead. They are the least holy of creatures, the symbol of unlife and awfulness in among the gods, and the gods sort of despise them. And even gods that wouldn't seem like, even some of the gods of death did not like the idea of the undead. You know, they didn't like the idea of these creatures that were masquerading with some sort of life. And yet in this area, death and the undead are tied to the good guys. They're tied to holiness. You know, we literally find divine embers and white titanite, the holy version of titanite down here. It doesn't say anything there. So miracles and holiness and light and purity are tied to something dark and grim and evil, the undead, which is a fascinating way to treat this. I also want to mention, however, that one of the greatest sections of story and atmosphere and setting in any video game ever was also in the Souls series, but it was in Demon Souls, where there was another area that was associated with holiness and light and purity and goodness. However, even though it was associated with holiness and the divine, it was actually the plague swamp area called the Valley of Defilement. And in the Valley of Defilement, they had a magnificent area where you killed the maiden Astraea, one of the demons, who was in reality a pure and just good woman, a pure woman, a just woman, a good woman, who had sacrificed her own knights in order to protect and love and care for and help the hideous creatures around her, including aborted babies. So that's an echo of the that we have of those aborted babies in the little baby skeletons in this area. But let's head into the boss room. I think there's a couple other things in this area, like a white titanite chunk I may have missed, but that's not all that important. Okay. This is kind of neat that they allow you this one little area in here. Now, what's going to happen when we... What's on the ground? Is it like... It almost looks like a tongue in a way, but it's... I guess they look like animal skins or something? The heck is it? What's not human skin? Ugh. But anyway, this is an interesting little boss fight because when you drop down into this room, you will be in a fairly large area. It's the same room, if you want to study it, that we use to join the Gravelord Covenant. And if we pop in there, we will be far away from where the boss actually is. Remember, the boss is in that little tombstone, that sarcophagus, where we found him before. And when we drop down here and the boss fight proper begins, we're going to have to stop immediately. Because if we go any closer to where the boss is, he will spawn in gigantic skeletons. The skeletons with the huge-looking curved swords that we were fighting in the undead in Firelink Shrine in the cemetery, and just out here. Those giant skeletons, and we're going to have to fight them and human-sized skeletons and Nito, and it is incredibly difficult. So you have to wait for the boss to meander over to you, not the other way around. Those little skeletons, the human-sized ones, those are going to come towards us. And there's not a whole lot that we can do about that, except to kill them with this divine club. It's probably going to take more than one hit from this divine club in order to kill them, because it's +8, but it still takes a significant amount to hurt them. Then the boss fight proper, supposing we live and I don't have to cut back, then the boss fight proper is going to begin. And that boss fight against Gravelord Nito is not terribly difficult. He has the Gravelord sword, which sort of attacks into the ground and spikes upward wherever you are. It sort of hones in on you, and it can inflict you with toxic, so that can be very, very worrying. But it's usually easier, it's pretty easy to jump out of the way of it, or at least, I don't think you're going to get hit twice in a row. That sounds pretty difficult. And you can also do an explosion of dark energy at you. But really, once we've gotten it down to just him, that's the easy part of it. So enough dawdling. Let's go down there and start this fight. And we also have to take damage, I should mention, when we fall. So that's some bullshit right there, that we have to automatically start the fight taking damage. We can hear a sort of a scream right when it's about to come. I managed to get very lucky and press the button in just the right way to roll exactly as I landed. So I didn't have to go through the crap of... These guys also inflict bleed, by the way. Oh, bullshit. Fucking hell. Fuck me. Alright, I'll cut back. You see, that's what I was trying to avoid when I first went in there with that roll, but I screwed it up the second time, apparently. These skeletons are pissing me off. Oh, one jumping attack? Fucking bullshit. Why would it take 3 R1s and yet 1 jumping attack? Alright, let's try to get this guy. That toxic, though. Oh, 386. That's pretty impressive. And here's his blast attack with the dark. This usually does a fair bit of damage, but he has a fairly large cooldown time. Not cooldown time, but recovery time. So we usually have a good moment to get back. See, that's the toxic status he's trying to inflict us with. Quick roll and it's pretty easy to get through that. Ooh. It's the explosion. I know I died multiple times on the way down here, but I promise you that this place is the easiest one to go to. Remember, it's easy relative to Dark Souls, so... Paladin Leroy's armor should be pretty close to here. Oh, we're getting far enough away from that not to get hit. That's pretty nice. There we go. He's dead. Thank the Lord. I feel like a total jackass for dying so stupidly to those damn skeletons. I should have just done the jumping attack. I sort of forgot about it. I thought that I could kill him with 2 hits with the regular one, but it was taking 3. I'm so pissed off. And there's Paladin Leroy's armor. That's an awesome armor. But tragically, it's also one of the armors that makes the weird, what is it now? This sort of like twinkling noise when it moves. It's not a coincidence that it's upgraded with twinkling titanite. It makes that sort of twinkling noise as it moves, and it's sort of like always, it's like a bag of coins, like if you have a bunch of coins in your pocket, jingling all the time, and it annoys the heck out of me. I wish you could turn that off. But anyway, let's take a look at his soul. Soul of Gravelord Nito, first of the dead. This Lord's soul was discovered at the dawn of the Age of Fire. Gravelord Nito administers the death of all manner of beings. The power of this soul is so great that it satiates the Lord Vessel, despite the fact that much of its energy has already been offered to death. Now remember that the great lords, they discovered the huge souls at the beginning of this era. Now, I don't know what that means. Were they regular creatures that just lucked out and had the soul fall on them? I doubt it. It seems like they were somewhat extraordinary and had the soul gifted to them in some way, but I'm not exactly sure. This we were getting to a much more realistically mystical or mythological area. Other games, say like Dragon Age or something like that, they would have a much more, I would consider it pedantic and boring answer to what happened, a more straightforward response. But the Dark Souls games are much more like an actual, a real-world, pre-modern era myth that was crafted, hundreds or thousands of years ago. Just like those trees are holding up this world strangely. We've gotten a ton of souls, which is pretty nice. Also going to quickly chat with Frampt, see if he has anything new to say, although I doubt it. Let's see. No, maybe if I gave the soul to the Lord vessel, it'd say something new, or I don't know. But here's Patches! Look at him, we're squatting there like a crook. I love the fact that he's completely bald. Let's talk to him now.
Oh, we meet again. How many of you are there? You've come at the perfect time. I'm done with the looting. I'm a humble merchant now, and wondrous treasures have I, at a special price for you. There you are. Have a nice look at them. Oh, relax. No more funny business out of me, my friend. Here, have you met that backwoods Shiva? Believe me on this one, bruv. The man is trouble. I can see it in his eyes. I just can. No doubt about it. Watch him. Yeah, have you met that sunbathing Solaire? Believe me on this one, bruv. He's a complete idiot. But he happens to be an awfully strong idiot. So just nod your head and keep him on your side. Wait, have you met Petrus? That self-proclaimed cleric? Believe me on this one, bruv. The man is scum. Don't you be fooled by his claims to do good. They're all the same, those rotten clerics. Boy, have you met Lautrec the Embraced? Believe me on this one, bruv. He's completely mad. He wouldn't think twice about cutting somebody down. So watch out for him. Especially if you've humanity to spare. I'm done with the looting. And wondrous I'm done with the loot and... What? Nothing appeals to you? Well, you must have poor taste.
Was an interesting load of dialogue he gave us. And oddly enough, even though he's a thief and a criminal, it was all accurate, you know. Solaire's a bit wacky, but very, very tough. Lautrec is likely to murder your ass for no damn good reason. The cleric guy, even though he has a pathological hatred of clerics, he's correct. You know, the cleric is evil. Lautrec is obviously crazy. Let's take a look at this embraced armor here. I forgot to talk about this. Armor of Lautrec the Embraced, representing the goddess Fina's love. The goddess wrapped her arms around him, as if to embrace the wearer. And apparently Lautrec was involved in some sort of weird, some sort of creepiness involving a goddess. And if you'll take a look at it, I'm trying to get a close-up view of it here. The front of it is so weird. There are arms around it, around the front. It's so bizarre. It's like a woman has sort of like grabbed her boyfriend around the chest here. And there's some sort of creepy relationship going on between Lautrec and this goddess named Fina, who... And I don't know if we know anything else about her at all. I mean, do we know even anything at all about... Let's see if we have something. During his solitude, he forsook everything, for he believed in the goddess's love for him. During his solitude? You mean that prison cell? Who is this goddess Fina? And what does she represent? Lautrec is based on another character in Demon Souls named Yurt, the Silent Chief. And Yurt was much more overtly evil and unpleasant and would just randomly murder people in the hub area of that game until you killed him. He was also had armor that had that sort of embraced look about it. I said that armor is gold, and it reminds me a lot of the armor of Mordred in the Excalibur movie, which was bright gold. And he was also sort of manipulated and embraced in a way by his creepy sorceress mother. Let's talk again and see what this guy has to sell.
Oh, there you are. Welcome. We chop prices, not limbs.
Check here and see what he has to say. You can get a gesture here, the prostration gesture, and it looks sort of...
Come on, you can do better than that. Nobody likes a tightwad. You hear me?
Prostration gesture. Let's take a look here. It's kind of unique. It looks like something that a penitent or a pilgrim or some sort of monk would do. It's some sort of... I've seen that in Japanese samurai movies. That must be some sort of part of Japanese etiquette, this sort of like samurai etiquette almost. I doubt it's part of modern Japanese culture. But he really despises clerics for some reason. Like maybe he was raised by them and they treated him badly, I don't know, but he just despises them. And the armor in here, Eyes of Death, so a little peculiar about this, but I don't think it breaks the covenant of Gravelord Nito if you kill him. I think you can still use it after... I think. I'm not sure about that. Divine Blessing. The goddess of sunlight, Guinevere, daughter of a great lord of sunlight, Gwyn, is cherished by all as the symbol of bounty and fertility. Holy water from goddess Guinevere. What do you mean from goddess Guinevere? Where does this holy water come from? Like, where does she get it? Does it come from her somehow? I'm getting kind of creepy there, but never mind. And he sells some cleric stuff, the mace, which is not a bad weapon at all, but that's really more of an earlier game weapon that you should just grab when you're in the catacombs. The crescent axe, in many a build, I've intended to use this somehow as a weapon, but you get it, like, in the last 25% of the game. So I'd really have to... I mean, I understand that you would switch over weapons at different parts of the game to try something new, but it takes so long to get. It doesn't have a great moveset. It doesn't look great. You kind of grip the axe sort of at the bottom, so it seems more like a halberd. Let's see what it says about it. Well-used bronze battle axe with a long hilt and a crescent-shaped blade. One of the blessed weapons of the Way of White. The crescent axe is bequeathed to cleric warriors who have proven their faith. So there you go. Quick talisman. Yeah, I mean, it's not great stuff. And then, of course, the 3 masks you can get, and the ridiculous super fat cleric armor. Let's see if this says anything about Pinwheel. One of the 3 masks of the Pinwheel, the necromancer who stole the power of the Gravelord and reigns over the catacombs. No, that's really all it says. So I'm not really quite sure about that Pinwheel. I think there is some sort of lore about him, but I'm just not quite aware of it. Anyway, that's enough for this episode. We've taken care of one of the 4 Lord Souls. We still have a whole lot to do, including the DLC, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do next, but until then,